Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. Kevin took the trip up from Maryland to get the wiring rescued on his bike. He told me it needed a rescue. Boy, was that an understatement. There's some stuff done that just doesn't make sense and it's just really disrespectful. Check this out. Okay, so we have the dollar store RCAs going into the DSP. I can live past that. They have aluminum wire instead of copper. I cannot live past that. We have some T-type connections. Then it switches from cheap wire to even cheaper wire. I can live past that. This I cannot live past. Why is the wire for the speaker going through the outside under the speaker, creating a leak, and it's cheap wire, and it's spliced together right here? I don't understand why they did that. Oh, now I get it. It's the wire for the lower, runs up, and then jumps in, and then jumps into the pod instead of catching it the other side or at the amplifier. Then look how thin the wire is here, and then it doubles in thickness here. So half the nuts are missing that are holding the speaker on the top plate. So that connector is for 10 gauge wire, and they have 14 gauge wire in it. And then they're using a different gauge on this side. The connections are held together with electrical tape. Come on, Chris, you know it's not soldered under there. Yeah. Look at that. You knew it wasn't going to be soldered. So it looks like we have an amp in the tour pack. This one they did a good job on. That must be done by a different installer, because whoever did that work is not the same person that did that work. But we're going to keep pulling it apart and see what else we come across. Chris, I have to see the fuses, if there are any. Where's the fuse? Rob, see if we can pull... that connector's falling off right there. There's got to be fuses here. Please tell me there's fuses here.
Very nice, look at that.
They did XT connections?
Yeah.
No fuse on this side. No fuse.
It looks like they are team no fuse.
No.
There's more mess under there.
No, they're going straight to the battery.
Look how loose that is.
It's not hot fuse.
Rob just found a loose connection, but I want to see the positive terminal. I'm going to pause the video for a second.
Got it.
So we have a rat's nest of wires here, a relay that we have no idea what it goes to.
Right here, right.
And then we have to pull it out carefully so the connectors don't come apart. We got...
Maybe for that line. Oh, yeah.
All right, so what do we got here? We do have fuses. All right, but the problem is, if we have a 4 gauge out and a 4 gauge out, and we only have a 4 gauge in, then that technically makes these 8 gauge, because a 4 gauge split into 2 would be 8 gauge. So that has to be upgraded to 0 gauge if we're trying to flow 4 gauge worth of current, 4 gauge worth of current. And remember, there's a 3000.1 in the tour pack, which draws 300 amps of current by itself. We have a 100 amp fuse and a 150 amp fuse. And I see some arcing going on right there. So both these fuses combined aren't even enough for that 3000 in the tour pack. And it doesn't matter because we're drawing current from 4 gauge and then splitting into 2. So that means the 3000 in the tour pack is getting 8 gauge worth of power. So we're gonna have to fix that up. Clean this mess up. You already know how I feel about that, so we're gonna go ahead and cut the whole thing out. At least they use XT60s. People like to use this DSP because it's an inexpensive DSP. You can get it online for like $100, $125. But if you're going to use this DSP, it's got to go in the tour pack. This is not a fairing mount DSP. It's not weatherproof, and it takes up so much space. I can fit a 400.4 or an 800.4 in the amount of space that this DSP takes. So look at that. And there's another amp under there. So we're going to remove this. We're going to go with an HCAD Mini. It fits right here perfectly, and it's going to free up all this real estate so we can properly mount the amplifiers and then have room to run the wires the way they're supposed to be ran. Like another thing I don't like about this DSP, there is no app for it. So to tune it, you actually need access to the knob and the screen. So once you put the fairing back together, there will be no more adjustments made. This does not have a PC input. This right here and the little screen's the only way you can adjust this DSP. For a trunk mount, maybe you could use this. In a fairing, never, ever, ever, ever. Just doesn't make sense. What happens if you have to make adjustments after the bike's put back together? Then you got to pull it back out, pull the fairing off, and then reach the screen. And it takes forever. I like to be sitting on the bike as I make adjustments. That way I can hear the changes. This, you got to get off, come to the front, make an adjustment, go back, sit on the bike. Just doesn't make sense for what we do. So the client wanted to know why one of the lowers wasn't playing. And simple. The reason it wasn't playing is the installer wasn't paying attention when he put it back together. When he mounted the lower, the bolt that holds the lower in place ended up cutting through the speaker wire. So we actually have a rule at the shop. As we put the bike together, whatever technician's working on the bike, hold on, Rob, whatever technician's working on the bike has to have the music playing. Rob, when you're putting the bike back together, does music have to be playing?
Yes.
100%, right?
100%.
That way, if it stops playing, you know you messed up right there and you can back up.
Yes.
All right.
Nothing goes back on until tune, fade, ready to go.
Perfect. But seriously, it's a good habit to get into because you waste a lot of time putting the fairing on, taking the fairing off, putting the fairing on, taking the fairing off. So, A, have your tech play the music that he likes at a low volume the entire time he's assembling the bike, and have the bike on a tender. And that way he knows if there's an issue, he'll know exactly when the issue was caused because the music's going to stop playing at that speaker at that time. It's just a little bit of common sense. So they would have known that they made a mistake as soon as they screwed that lower in and that speaker cut out and the whole amplifier freaked out. They would have known immediately instead of guessing. Chris did an amazing job at rescuing this one. So now we went with the smaller DSP so it fits in here. 400 here. 800 nicely tucked under the headlight. Nice and clean. Look at all the space. And then Chris chased me around all day for factory plugs to put the speaker pod back together. So now the harness is rescued and we have factory speaker connectors on both sides. So it's back to factory. Upgraded to a Braille lithium. Fuse holder on the side. Even his relay and accessories are now fused. They were not fused before. Nice and clean. Almost ready to go home. So you remember the madness that was going on with the speaker pods before? Not anymore. No more wire running inside the speaker pod. Now we just have to add the sound deadener to seal the pod back off. And the line going down to the lower is Tessa tape protected and nice and clean. Now we just got to clean it up on the router. So Chris is going to follow the ring and smooth it out.
magic. Come home with a thug, let's get shit cracking. Always wear plastic, baby, cause shit happen. She leave the back seat, just a freak in the Magnum. Hopped out the Magnum, hopped in the tray, just to let the top back and think. I made a couple $1 million last year dealing weight. Still in the streets, strapped with them things, she in love.
This girl is an instant danger. The way she moves on the dance floor. Mami, yo sé que soy un extraño. Y yo quiero que me des calor. Love how you move that hips, girl. Shaking it like a pro. Bring esa cinturita. TikTok, muévelo slow. Love how you move that hips, girl. Shaking it like a pro. Bring esa cinturita. TikTok, muévelo slow. Muévelo slow.
Let's get it crunk on up in this dancery. We got y'all open, now you're floating, so you got to dance for me. Don't need no hateration, holleration in this dancery. Let's get it crunk.
Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. Kevin took the trip up from Maryland to get the wiring rescued on the bike and get the bike tuned up. Are you completely happy with the way it sounds?
Absolutely.
Was it worth the trip?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for trusting us.
Thank you.